Well, you might or might not notice it, or it could consume your day. Tinnitus. But a lot of people might not know what it really is or how to treat it. I'm here with Dr. Patty Kalmbach from Colorado Tinnitus and Hearing Center and Vicki Stubbs, manager at Tinnitus Incorporated. So let's talk about tinnitus or tinnitus. What is it?
Either one is correct. First of all, people pronounce it differently. Tinnitus is actually a perception of a sound that a patient will hear in their head or their ears that's not coming from an external source. So it's something that they actually hear in their head.
Okay, so it's not really your ears so much, is it? It's more your brain?
It can be. It's maybe started out as an ear, becomes a brain thing.
Okay, all right. And how common is it? I mean, is it, everybody says, oh, I heard a loud sound and I had my ears ring a little bit.
Yeah, it's probably more common than people really realize. We have patients that come in and they say, oh, I hear it once in a while. Probably 50 million Americans will say they hear it over the last year. And we all get that transient tinnitus. You hear it for a few seconds and it goes away. It's when it becomes debilitating. It's when it becomes more frequent. And so probably 20 million Americans will say they've had it where it's starting to become bothersome. Wow. Probably 2 million will actually say it's becoming debilitating.
And when you say debilitating, what are some of the things that happen to folks?
They can't focus, they can't concentrate, they can't sleep. So, you know, with our patients that we see, the debilitating type where, you know, they can't even go to work. So again, it really affects their overall everyday quality of life.
And what are the treatments that people do now for tinnitus to get help?
Yeah, thankfully, treatments have gotten much better in the last 5 to 10 years. Previously, 20 years ago, we would put almost like a white noise generator, kind of like a little hearing aid.
Hissing.
Yeah, and
sound.
they would listen to a shh all day long.
Right.
Didn't really do anything long term. It was more of a Band-Aid.
Right.
And so, you know, in the last 5 years, we've actually been focusing more on calming the brain down, focusing more on that limbic amygdala part of the brain.
Right.
And so now with the newer treatment that we're doing, Tinnitus, it's actually out of Cologne, Germany. And so that's a newer treatment that we're doing, and actually the only place in Colorado that's doing it.
And we're seeing some colorful video on that. Now, Vicki, I want to ask you about Tinnitus. It is a new treatment in the Colorado Tinnitus and Hearing Center, the only folks doing it. How is it fundamentally different than the way people have been treating tinnitus before?
We're able to actually very accurately pitch match the tinnitus of the person's tinnitus, so the frequency, and we have a software that does that very accurately. And by then sending therapeutic tones below and above that area of the tinnitus, we're able to disrupt the hyperactive firing of the neurons, which settles the neurons down. It decreases the loudness and annoyance that the person then has.
So that's interesting. So you try to match the frequency that someone is perceiving that they hear, because it's not an actual sound, and so you're treating the brain, not the ears, right?
Yeah, so it's actually the auditory cortex, like Vicki said, and so when we can go in and say, okay, that portion of the brain, the auditory cortex, is almost lined up like a piano keyboard. And so when the brain is maybe not getting the same information, hearing loss, ear infection, whatever, that part of the brain becomes auditorily deprived. And so that brain starts, or those neurons start to become hyperactive and chatter, and that's what the patient perceives as tinnitus.
That's very interesting, and this is a new treatment, the only place in Colorado that does it, and hope for a lot of folks who need this treatment. And Amelia, I think these two were probably STEM superstars when they were younger. What do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a running conversation in my house, whether it's tennis